Hey, Gutfoxx here. Today I want to go through like my review of MLB The Show 22. Now, I think a pure review won't be able to happen until like the end of the year, end of the game, because then we'll see like all the content they brought us in Diamond Dynasty, patches, etc. Last year they left us kind of high and dry and didn't really patch the game very much. Now, on one hand, that's okay, right? Like this early in the game, I don't think they should be patched for like a month, at least gameplay balance-wise. Trying to get rid of like these server issues that we're experiencing, any sort of bugs. Those are good patches. But I'm glad last year and this year, and so far at least, they've kind of gone through like a, let's get a little hands back, let's people get up to like higher legend difficulties, that kind of stuff. Feel the game out more before we do any balance changes, and that's cool. So we won't expect it for a while, but last year I felt like they maybe didn't do enough, and we'll talk about that. Let's go through like the good first, because it's gonna be kind of small, right? The good is, it's baseball. It's a pretty good representation of the game of baseball. Probably the best, I would say, we've ever had. Most accurate baseball simulation ever. Create a stadium's great. All the features they have. Franchise obviously would probably be put into the bad as kind of like a, when you play out of the park baseball, then you go over to this game and this franchise mode is like, they got a long way to go still. So like there's some cool stuff that they added. Of course, they brought it to a new console, Switch. They added co-op, of course. I have not really dabbled into co-op. I'm not really that interested in it. Just like MUT Squads, I've tried it out. MUT Squads, it was all right. It is fun. I think with MUT Squads, the difference between that and like this game is that you're always active in MUT Squad. This game, you're kind of like you're taking more of a backseat in co-op. But when your opponent, when your friend is playing instead of you. So, but that's cool to kind of like hang out and play with your friends and stuff. Hopefully in the future, they said they're going to bring in a rewards to the co-op, and I think maybe it'll take off more when that happens. I know there's some glitches there. If you bring in any sort of relief pitcher or closing pitcher in co-op, you will get frozen. I think the 8th inning air, you have to bring in starters and relief in co-op. So anyways, there are glitches there. There are glitches in the game. And so, like, keep going on with the positive aspect of it. Battle Royale's back. There's the Battle Royale program. That's really nice. Now, the issue with the Battle Royale program, it makes all these cards, which, to be fair, are not really, like, super glitchy cards. It makes them very cheap. And so, like, going 12-0 no longer has that luster unless you get somebody like Mike Trout for your 12-win reward. In addition, these guys are, like, 30 to 40K on top of it. So we used to have cards that are like 500,000 stubs that we got for winning BR 12-0. Now it's kind of like 30, 40K. It's like, yeah, that's fine per game reward, but it's really nothing that impressive anymore to get. So that's the downside. Events, they're bringing new events every single, time that the old event goes away. So events are awesome. We've had 2 of them so far. I really wish they did a little bit more with casual. I wish it was like a standard mode, very like less rewards than ranked seasons, no actual rank right there. Maybe make it like all-time all-star. They could rotate that between that and Hall of Fame. I would have preferred something like that from the change up casual, because right now it's not really played very much. There's no real use for it. I wish it would count for PXP and players and stuff like that and stats. So for right now, I feel like casual needs an overhaul. They really haven't heard from us about that. I guess they haven't heard us say this, that I hope that overhaul that going forward, to make it more valuable time, because it is kind of fun just like casually playing the game with your squad where you're not using your full-on ranked seasons. You don't have to sweat and try hard very much to go very far in ranked seasons. All right. Single player mode, mini seasons, and that addition is a huge W to the franchise. People seem to love it. I've dipped into it. It seems fine, right? Like some people complain because if you're no money spent, you go against some guys that have had actually like whale teams like myself. For somebody that's completed a live series collection, going against my team when you got a gold team, it's going to be very frustrating. Conquest is back. They're doing a really good job bringing new Conquest and everything. Showdown, very similar to last year. Play versus CPUs, just still play versus CPU. So overall, a solid job. I know a lot of people are having a lot of fun with the mini seasons, and then obviously Conquest itself is just enjoyable to play a little bit of a war going on. So big positives that they're expanding and kind of hearing from the community about what we wanted, what we want to change with that between the co-op and the single player game mode and that. So overall though, like, the market, even though like, there's not a lot of like margins anymore due to, and we'll go to this into like the bad part of it, due to the lack of pack rewards on some like the Team Affinity, it's still a lot of good content they've been bringing out. I think the market is the best one in sports games. I think hands down, there's not a single other Ultimate Team game mode has as good of a market. It's cross-platform too. That's really neat. Cross-generation. That's awesome. I'm having fun with the game, which is like all you can ask out of games, right? At the end of the day, the biggest thing I'll say about this, I'm having fun with it, okay? And before I branch into my bad portion of this review, just remember that like the number one thing and the most important thing is the whole video. I'm having fun with it. I don't know if you guys are having fun with it. I'm having fun with it. It's baseball. I enjoy it. There's going to be fluke. You're going to get angry. I get angry at the game, at fluke, at myself mostly for sometimes screwing up and not getting my PCI in the ball, not timing it right. Let's get into the bad. Okay. It is very similar to the game last year. This MLB The Show 22, it's frustrating that they, on one hand, it was cool that they brought it to Switch. On the other hand, I was kind of hoping that they bring it to like the next generation, right? Like I see what they're trying to do. They're expanding it. I don't know if that's from a direction from MLB or their business leaders saying, hey, make it bigger, get more money out of your franchise. I just wish they had focused on Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5, that kind of stuff. That generation versus kind of like bringing it to even weaker consoles. So like the game itself, like a lot of the visuals, the animations, a lot of these things really didn't change year over year. So it's very similar that we've seen to the game, you know, for the last few years. They brought a new commentary team. I turn off all sound right away. I haven't heard them. I got no opinion on them whatsoever, so you're not going to hear that in this review at all. But it's basically very similar, exact same thing. The biggest thing gameplay-wise, they nerfed the most popular stadium in the game. Ship It, I guess, is a pretty big gameplay change. Unfortunately, like they still have these. A few years ago, Ramon mentioned that players with over 80 power, they said it was like a threshold. A perfect fly ball is gonna be a home run. I hit a perfect fly ball with Brian Reynolds, flew out to the warning track in San Francisco. These parks do not play well. Outfielders accelerate it feels like old generation Madden, where like your acceleration is just like 0 to 100 almost instantly. And so you see that in the outfield. Outfielders have so much range now. They hawk down, the balls seem to float up and hang up in the air a little bit long. There's not a large variety of hits online. Offline, I heard it's a lot better with variety hits, but it's something about online, maybe with the server connections, everything, they don't have it as much. So like there is still a little that funkiness and unfortunateness of like you don't have that variety of hits right now. This early on in the game, you know, power's not there, but later on in the game, it's definitely going to go to a home run or bust type situation. We already kind of have that with some of these players over 100 power, like you see Albert Pujols. Gloss is right there. We got Frank over 100. So we got some end game cards already. Now, the good thing about this year's game is that the Live Series collection, a lot of these cards, they're just not end game, right? Like Roberto Clemente, phenomenal NL collection reward. He is absolutely awesome for this point of the game. Great choice, but he's not going to be like end game, which is something that we haven't seen. Like usually we get like, you know, Chipper Jones for the Live Series collection. This year we got Randy Johnson, who is really good. Don't get me wrong, really good, but he is not going to be the best pitcher in the game by the time that the game is, you know, by like November or whatever. So overall, I like the changes there. I don't like that creative player is still in this game mode in Diamond Dynasty. They got to separate creative player out of Diamond Dynasty, put that back in the Road to the Show. It's cheesy. It's awful. Why are we still doing that when we have so many different cards out here? Talk about different cards. They really didn't bring in that many new legends this year. It's very frustrating not to have guys like Joe DiMaggio, Derek Jeter, and other non-legend Yankees not in the game. Whereas like they have like 100 years plus of baseball history to dip into, to bring into guys. They just have to do the effort, and MLB The Show doesn't seem to be wanting to do the effort outside of like a few guys every year. So hopefully in the future they can hear us and then bring in more legends, because bringing in the history of the game I think really benefits it, and we can see all the different players and all the different like animations they have, the different pitch you know, styles, different pitches, different batting you know, motions. So hopefully in the future they do this. Gameplay wise, you know, there's still those off PCI hits where you completely fool the guy, you know, very late inside and he'll chop it over, you know, that's just baseball kind of stuff. It's frustrating from playing it sort of like when it happens, when you do it, you love it, right? Because you're basically cheating your opponent and you're like, you're getting on base for free, and it feels good. For your opponent, it feels like the worst thing ever because you basically beat them. But like, it's a video game, right? Like in real life, that stuff happens, and it should happen in simulation mode. But I feel like there might not be enough of a distinction between competitive and simulation mode. Whereas like cheap hits shouldn't be as frequent, and perfect should be more frequent. Landing down in the outfield, you know, just getting base hits, home runs, that kind of thing. So it is unfortunate that like sometimes you don't get rewarded for your inputs, even though like, you know, pitching, if you have perfect inputs pitching, you'll basically put it exactly where you want it. That's like, you know, perfect inputs lead to a perfect solution there, but not on the opposite side, which, you know, might be hard for the developers to really code that, you know, perfect's always landing, because, you know, there are defenders out there and in different timing and spaces and everything. But hopefully in the future, perfect's can go up from the like 85% hit rate to like 95, because there isn't anything more frustrating than 15% of the time you're not going to get a hit, even though you absolutely couldn't have done anything better. So that's just the competitive game mode itself. Now, I know there are, like, hot shots right at players. That's just baseball. But I'm just saying, as a competitive game, hopefully, it's pretty good, I'd say. It's pretty good, but hopefully they can tighten it up a little bit. The better player will win a majority of the time. Okay? A downside here in Diamond Dynasty is the lack of packs given out, right? It's affected everything from top to bottom. The economy is completely different. In previous years, right? Like 2 years ago, we had XP reward path giving out like 99s that were insane, right? We then had team affinity. We then had our inning bosses. Now it's down to one thing, right? Those three have now gone down to this little, obviously they could change this going forward. Face of the franchise program. We can grinding XP for it. It is what it is. I think the cards are solid, 90 overall to team affinity, but we don't get nearly the amount of packs that we used to due to the lack of different, paths that our experience take us down. If we're grinding out the experience, 3 packs is nice. It's really cool. Maybe they'll start to give out more as the summer goes along, and that will change a lot of the market dynamics. I can see that happening because it's really, they got generous, really generous, I thought, during summer last year, and it's still only spring. So the game's just starting, which is why the review is, a little early on. But overall, like, I do feel almost everybody thinks this was a step down from the previous year. Right now, if you guys recall, MLB The Show was at 18 with the Immortals, Babe Ruth, Ken Griffey Jr., that kind of stuff. That ended up delivering probably the worst Ultimate Team game mode experience in the history of Ultimate Team game modes. That was brutal. Probably as bad as NHL Ultimate Teams. That's how bad MLB The Show 18 was. Now, the community complained a lot, right? The community absolutely pitched a fit. And they responded to that anger with a couple years there, right? 19, 20, last year and 21, of what people consider the greatest Ultimate Teams now in existence. And now it feels like we're kind of going back there. We're backsliding because so much of the community has been so positive the last couple of years because they absolutely flooded with content, free stuff that nobody spent's been phenomenal with it. Now it feels like we're backsliding a little bit because everybody's so satisfied. We're not really complaining that much. We're getting less and less things. So we just got to be aware of that we got to give them accurate feedback that, like, hey, this kind of a jerk move. Not give us as much as we used to get just only a couple years ago. So hopefully they can, hear that going forward. I know whenever I say negative things, SDS simps jump down my throat like crazy. It is absolutely insane. But you know what? That's the internet, right? Everybody's got an opinion. It's fair that you share it as long as, like, you're just, nice about it. Don't be kind of a dick. But that's my thought, is we are backsliding a little bit on the free rewards. You can repeat the Conquest, the Mystery Conquest over and over if you do want rewards. That is still an option. Still out there, but it is disappointing not just playing the game, getting a lot of rewards isn't still there. And that has quite affected the market with the margins, basically, even on the low end. There are still some margins here to make stubs on, but because the amount of packs have gone away, you look at these things, and these things are closer than really they were before. Now, there is still the margin here. You can make 100 plus stubs just by flipping one of these Hernandez's, but still, people have, like, just shocked themselves because these numbers can go up and down pretty quickly. Also, if you buy it 634, try and sell it 807 and it doesn't sell, it's a problem. But that is kind of showing itself in the market itself. So the legends, I did mention that we don't have enough legends. I want more of those. The server issues, there's a lot of freeze off still. There are still a lot of things that are causing, like, slowdowns. I think players like Vlad, players with, like, dreads and stuff, I know they slow down. I think it's last gen consoles. People complain about performances if your player has long hair. So that's a big issue still, that there's, like, mechanical issues in the game itself and the freeze offs. I don't exactly, if you guys know how to trigger freeze offs, tag me on Twitter. I'll try and let the SDS devs know or make a video of it. Last year when we made a video of it, they patched it within 2 weeks. So that was pretty awesome that people were intentionally causing freeze offs to other people. We reported, made a video of it, and then boom, it was fixed. So if you guys have those kind of things, report them to me, report them to SDS, whatever you can, please. We need freezes. We need these problems to go away. Also, server issues. You just get kicked from the servers once in a while. Always a problem. Now, one of the biggest things is like they still have R2 in the game. For those that don't know what R2 does, if you're up at bat and you hit R2, you can interrupt the player's like pitching motion. It doesn't really affect pulse at all, but it affects players doing stuff like pinpoint pitching, where they're trying to like draw that. Like if you just hit R2, you can spam it up to 3 times, and then like if they try and start it during when you're hitting R2, it'll screw them up, throw them off, and they'll probably throw a meatball or a ball way out of the zone. And people have learned it, and they are so toxic. And the fact that SDS fixed it last year, but they didn't take it out of the game, and their fix was to like leave it there, and it just like it reverted this year, and they for some reason left it in the game as it was originally, so you can interrupt pitchers and cause these problems. It's disappointing. I'd say it's very disappointing. The fact that like, why isn't the information of the pitcher just on the screen at all time? They got to remove the functionality of the R2 button. Now, I realize people are like, oh, what if I want them to slow it down when I'm at bat? You can hit pause, right? You can hit down on the D-pad to hit pause to slow them down, right? That's still a possible thing to do. But like, people want to play the game, right? Baseball in itself, in its nature, is a little bit of a slower game between pitches. So some people just want to pitch, then pitch, and then pitch, and then just get the game over with. Because like, you know, the game is an action-packed game, and we want to play the game. We want to play this action-packed thing going back and forth. So if it does throw you off, hit the pause button, catch your breath, and then go back into it and keep ripping away. But that's the excuse that people are using. Like, oh, I need a break between people throwing the pitches so fast. Well, guess what? Guess what? I think that's just an excuse. I think people just like hitting R2 because they're jerks. And the fact that SDS has left a completely toxic thing in the game is terrible. It's a weird thing where their heads are at with that, right? They introduced replaying home runs, which is just adding more toxicity in the online gaming. Personally, I would never replay a home run, because if somebody plays a home run against me, I focus up, right? I'm like, oh, well, this guy's kind of a jerk. So like, it's just unfortunate that they're leaving these toxic things in the game. Bunt dancing still a thing that people are using. Like, you can bunt still with the ball. Like, the ball can be like wildly out of the zone. Why don't you have to match your PCI up when you bunt to where the ball is going? I have no idea why bunting is such a low skill maneuver, but so safe for a lot of players to do. It needs to change dramatically. Bunting needs to be overhauled. So there are still these things in games, and we'll talk about them through the year, that still need to be a little bit of, needs to be looked at a bit for the game to really hit its apex. So overall, though, as a grade, with the good, the bad, you guys heard it here. Let me know in the comment section what you guys like, what you guys dislike about the show so far. Love to hear it. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's backsliding a little bit with Diamond Dynasty content, which knocks it down from a 9 out of 10 to me. It left the toxic things in the game. Like I said, there's still a lot of inconsistencies between PCIs, perfects going foul, those kind of things, that I feel like 8 out of 10 is a fair number for this game. We'll see, of course, what they end up patching going forward. They could easily make this into a 10 out of 10 game going forward, in my opinion, with just those few changes that I mentioned. Easier said than done, though, right? That's it for the video. Again, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks for watching Call to Action. I will see you tomorrow.